My name's Stickman. Part-time detective, full-time historian, and casual iced coffee. Addict especially when the world's literally on fire. Because today, I'm investigating one of the hottest cases in human history. And no, I don't mean hot ass and trending. I mean fire. Real fire. We're diving into the story of how one of the world's biggest cities turned into a blazing inferno for 4 straight days. This is the Great Fire of London, 1666. Picture this. You live in a city where almost every building is made of wood. The roofs are straw, and the streets are so narrow people can barely pass each other. Everyone cooks over open flames. There are no firefighters, and obviously no Wi-Fi. Basically, London back then was a giant matchbox waiting for a spark. And that spark came from the unlikeliest place. A bakery. On the night of September 2nd, 1666, a baker named Thomas Farriner was closing up his shop on Pudding Lane. Everything seemed fine. The ovens were off, the bread sold, the street quiet. But one tiny ember was still glowing in the corner of the oven. It dropped into a pile of firewood, and whoosh! Flames started licking up the wooden walls. Within minutes, the fire spread to the neighboring house. And since all the buildings were crammed together like dominoes made of dry wood, the whole street went up in flames. Word of the fire spread fast. Stickmen ran out of their homes carrying whatever they could grab: pets, furniture, random things like teapots and violins. Most thought the fire would die out soon. Spoiler, it didn't. The wind that night was strong, blowing glowing embers across rooftops. Within hours, Pudding Lane had turned into a mini hell. Detective Stickman, arrived at the scene later to investigate. The street was blackened, smoke still curling from the ruins. A half-burned sin, read Farriner's bakery. Irony level maximum. I stood there thinking, how could one small spark change the fate of an entire city? See, London in 1666 didn't have a proper fire department. No fire engines, no hoses, no alarms, just buckets. Buckets. People literally formed bucket chains from the Thames River, passing water from hand to hand while shouting and panicking. It wasn't a plan, it was chaos disguised as teamwork. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, was called to the scene to make a decision. Some advised him to demolish nearby houses to stop the fire from spreading, but he hesitated. It's a small fire, he said. It'll burn itself out. 3 hours later, his own house was on fire, and that's when things truly spiraled out of control. The fire kept spreading north and west, devouring markets, churches, and homes. The narrow streets trapped people inside, turning escape routes into ovens. Horses bolted in fear. Families ran carrying children and belongings, only to hit dead ends. The wind kept carrying sparks hundreds of meters away, igniting fresh fires. By the next day, the flames reached the city's heart, St. Paul's Cathedral. That cathedral was London's pride and joy, but it was made of limestone and timber, terrible combo under extreme heat. When the fire hit, the roof melted. Literally. Lead from the roof poured down the streets like lava. Eyewitnesses said the sky turned orange-red that night, as if the heavens themselves were burning. I walked through the ruins, smoke still rising around me. Interesting, I muttered, puffing on my Stickman pipe which, for the record, produces only cartoon smoke. This wasn't just one man's mistake. It was a whole system that failed. Because think about it, everything was perfectly set up for disaster. Wooden buildings, dry weather, strong winds, and people who underestimated the danger. By the second day, the fire was out of control. The wind kept feeding it, and every firefighting attempt failed miserably. Looting began. Some stickmen tried to save their shops. Others simply ran for their lives. Merchants cried as their warehouses burned. Wealthy nobles lost their mansions. Eventually, King Charles II himself got involved. He ordered houses in the fire's path to be blown up with gunpowder, creating fire breaks. It was a desperate move, but it worked. Slowly, painfully, the fire began to die down. By September 6th, 4 days later, it was over. The fire had finally burned itself out, But London was gone. More than 13,000 houses, 87 churches, and hundreds of shops were reduced to ash. Around 80,000 people were left homeless. Official reports said only 6 people died. But come on, nobody believes that. Historians agree the real number was much higher. The fire was so intense that many victims were completely incinerated, leaving no trace behind. I stood among the ashes, the silence almost eerie. The bustling city was gone, only wind, and the crackle of burnt wood remained. A half-burnt street sign caught my eye. Pudding Lane, the birthplace of destruction. From this narrow lane, history took a turn that would shape the future of urban life. After the fire, rumors went wild. People wanted someone to blame. Some accused the French, others the Dutch, and many pointed fingers at Catholics. One poor Frenchman named Robert Hubert confessed, probably under pressure, to starting the fire. But here's the kicker. He hadn't even been in London when it started. Still, he was executed. Fear makes people cruel, and in the ashes of chaos, justice often burns away too. Months later, an official investigation concluded the obvious. It was an accident, a tragic mix of a small spark, bad luck, and a poorly built city. No conspiracy, no sabotage, just human carelessness magnified by circumstance. I wandered to the remains of St. Paul's Cathedral. It was rubble now, but from those ashes, London began to rebuild. Architect Sir Christopher Wren was tasked with redesigning the city. He planned wider streets, brick and stone buildings, and better fire safety rules. In the very spot where the fire began, a monument was built 61 meters tall. It still stands today. If you climb to the top, you can see the city that once almost vanished. I stared at that monument for a long time. In the soft light of sunset, its white stone gleamed. It's strange, I thought. Sometimes it takes a catastrophe for people to build something better. Sometimes we have to burn down before we can rise again. The fire changed more than the skyline. It changed how cities thought about safety. New building laws were passed. The first fire insurance companies were created, complete with their own firefighting teams. So, in a way, modern fire safety was born out of this tragedy. But to me, the most important part isn't about architecture or policy, it's about people. Every time humanity falls apart, we have 2 choices: to give up or to rebuild. London chose to rebuild, and it did, spectacularly. As I finished recording my notes, I looked around one last time. Smoke had faded, birds were returning, and the city was beginning to breathe again. Case file. Great Fire of London closed, I said into my recorder. Before leaving, I turned to the camera. Well, to you. So, what do we learn from this? I asked. Never underestimate a tiny spark. Sometimes, the smallest things cause the biggest disasters. Kind of like replying to your exes. Text, except this time, it's fire. I chuckled. And remember, don't wait for tragedy to teach you. History has already burned enough for all of us. Primera while kid Hawaii, my silhouette stretching across the gray ashes. The last plumes of smoke faded into the orange evening sky. London might have burned, but its spirit never did. And like any good detective, I knew every ending hides the start of another mystery. Just before the screen faded to black, I looked back one more time. The Great Fire case closed, but the mysteries of history, they're still burning.